Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 4th of October 2022, and I've got a few things I want to talk about today. First of all, some people have been asking in my Telegram group and on the comment section, what's the latest with people like Rainer Fuellmich and Mark Sexton, who were working against the powers that shouldn't be and trying to bring certain people to justice and get certain things stopped from being rolled out, etc. But they then seem to, both of them, go quiet for a lot of the summer. And it was, well, you know, what's going on? Well, as far as Rainer Fuellmich, he's been around doing a few interviews, and apparently things are progressing as far as he's concerned and what he's doing. But there, in his organisation or firm that he works for, there has been some shenanigans going on. I don't know if you saw the videos where a lot of the time he was sitting around a big kind of board meeting type table with a couple of other people. One of them was a blonde-haired lady called Vivian, and she has accused Rainer of stealing a lot of money from the kind of organisation that is fighting the powers that shouldn't be and trying to bring these Nuremberg 2 sort of cases. And she's saying he's absconded with all this money, and then he's responded that that's not true and she's got some kind of axe to grind. So I don't know what's going on there. One of the disappointing things I've found with the resistance or the freedom movement, whatever you want to call it, is this whole thing of everybody calling everybody else a shill and controlled opposition, etc. And I just think this kind of thing shouldn't be happening. We should all be pulling together and fighting, you know, the real lot of people we need to be fighting against, and not succumbing to all of this name calling and accusing people of this, that and everything else. Unless, of course, you've got hard evidence, that's different. But if you've just got a hunch that someone's a wrong one, well, you know, it's probably best to hold your tongue, I'd have thought, until things are proven. So, yeah, a bit disappointing, and it's got to be a bit of a setback to Rainer Fuellmich's whole deal anyway. On a more positive note, Mark Sexton, he's had quite a bit of success. I think it was yesterday. He has been compiling more evidence against the powers that shouldn't be regarding certain things that should be stopped from being rolled out now. And he and his crew went along to somewhere in the Avon area, so I guess that's Bristol, and they went along to a V centre and the police, and basically got the place shut down. And first of all, the police and the people at the V centre treated them with a lot of scepticism and just thought they were nuts. But then Mark Sexton, etc., produced a lot of irrefutable evidence. I suppose all of this kind of thing regarding Professor Malhotra, who I talked about, and the kind of S and E, a second opinion film as well, and all of the revelations that were in there on that film. And oh, by the way, that film, S&E, a second opinion, that was put on this platform, but of course these guys here, being what they are, pulled it in very short order. So I don't know, the people running this platform are just so not on the right side of history, are they? That's all I'll say about that. But Mark Sexton got this centre that does V's shut down, and because they just had so much evidence that the police and the V Centre themselves had no choice but to shut it down. Apparently it's going to be shut down for 3 days while they look into the claims and the evidence that Mark Sexton has presented. And it stopped a lot of people from getting the latest round of stuff. So that is a really, really good result. Fantastic result. So I think Mark Sexton's got a letter or something so that this can be replicated up and down the country. But as I come across that, get more details on that, I'll tell you more about that going forward in the next sort of few videos. So the last thing I want to talk about today, Thomas Sheridan. Been catching up with him, seen 2 or 3 of his videos that he's done in the fairly recent past. I saw his latest one, Winter is Coming, I think it's called. That was very interesting. He did that yesterday, I think, as well. And then another one, which I think he did about a week ago, he was talking about how you should never, ever call a politician by their first name. He was actually quite adamant about it, and he said if I catch anyone who I deal with, and I doubt he watches me, but he watches a lot of people like me, but with big audiences, I suppose. And he said if I catch any of you talking about any of these people by their first name, I'm just not going to have anything more to do with you. And whilst I echo the sentiment, I think that's a bit extreme, but I understand where he's coming from. And you might recall that I've been calling the last Prime Minister Johnson rather than his popular first name that everybody else calls him for quite a lot of months now. And that was after Thomas Sheridan kind of talked about this thing last time. And the reason for it, according to him, is if you call them by their first name, it kind of gives them power. It's a bit hard to describe. It's a bit like, oh, thank you very much for allowing me to call you by your first name. Very, very generous of you. Sort of, thank you, sir. 3 bags full, sir. And if you call them by their last name, their surname, like, well, again, his example was an army drill sergeant, oi, Truss, what do you think you're up to? Johnson, what's that all about? Like that kind of puts you more in charge of them. I think a more apt analogy that I'd use rather than the army drill sergeant would be someone who's got servants. You wouldn't call your servants, or well, maybe they do these days, maybe some aristocrat in this day and age, they do call their servants by their first names, but they didn't used to, did they? Sort of 100 years ago, it'd be, the aristocrat would be, I say, Jeeves, will you get Smith to bring the car around? I want to pop into town to do some business. Have it round the front in 5 minutes' time, please. That's what it'd be like, because the guy with the servants, the aristocrat, or the rich person, he's up here, and the servants are down here. So by calling them their last name, that and only their last name, that kind of emphasises that. And we should never forget that these politicians, they're our servants. Public servants is another name for politicians. Clues in the name, isn't it? They're there to serve us, to represent us. And therefore, as Thomas Sheridan says, we should not be calling them by their first name. We should be kind of maintaining that little bit of distance, calling them by their last name only. And I 100% agree with that sentiment. And I think we just need to flip around this very common perception that the vast majority of people have towards politicians. yeah, we tend to sort of think, we've been brought up to think, well, they're top-notch people. You only get to be a minister or prime minister if you're very, very clever and you're a top-notch person, best person for the job sort of thing. And once they're in power, you should obey them, look up to them, obey them, and follow every instruction they give you. Well, no. First of all, the last few prime ministers, including this current one, certainly Johnson and definitely Truss, it's patently obvious that they are not intelligent people. They're clueless, hopeless people taking orders from the powers that shouldn't be, whoever they might be. So they're definitely not worthy of respect, and they're not even doing what we, the people, are asking them to do, i.e. represent us and, you know, make sure our best interests are adhered to. So if we kind of flip what most people regard the relationship as on its head, so instead of them being up here and us down here, it's the other way around. We're the boss of them, they're our servants, and if we see them doing something wrong, we shouldn't be afraid of sort of saying, "Oi, Truss, what are you up to? What do you mean by kind of sort of paying attention to this Whiskey Echo Foxtrot lot? Why are you setting so much store by them? They're unelected. We don't want you following their orders. We're the ones who elected you, so you follow our orders. Get on with it." And that really should be our attitude towards politicians. So and I'm sure most people watching this would either agree with that, we should be the ones in charge of them, or just totally ignore them. So that is how most people watching this believe, I'd have thought. But if I could just teach a few people that you need to flip round your thing, don't doff your cap to these politicians and think they're any better than you. They're not, and it's you who are the boss of them. And if you can just flip that thinking around 180 degrees, that would make this country and the world a much, much better place, I'd have thought. Anyway, this has gone on long enough. I'm going to leave a link to Thomas Sheridan's video where he was talking about this kind of thing, just calling politicians by their last name, their surname. I'll leave that in the comments section and the description box below, because it is on this platform, so you can go and watch him as well if you like. So leave it for now. Tim from Fair Play Now. Thanks for watching.